it's Missy.
And it's April.
And this is Sheela and the Gig. Hey everybody, welcome to Sheela and the Gig. We are so happy that you're joining us today. Each week, of course, we present and explore our own Sheela and the Gig, a woman whose strength and perseverance has led her to greatness, who empowers us, inspires us. Maybe it's somebody you've heard of that just needs a little bit more credit. Maybe it's somebody you've never heard of that definitely needs some more credit. We're just very excited to be with you here today. How are you, April?
I'm well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good. Yeah, we are excited to find out about our next Sheela. I'm excited, I should say, and yeah.
Well, I am rather excited to share her. I
Excellent.
have to admit.
Excellent. But how are you? How are things? Like, let's just chat for reals for a minute.
Oh, for reals?
Yeah, for reals. I know April lost a close friend recently, and I know she's been going through some grief, and it's tough. It's tough. How you doing?
I'm doing okay. It's a sad time. I think when we lose people that are dear to us, it really is a little jarring and disorienting and sad. But this particular person also reflects the joys, and he had a great sense of humor and a deep love of family and tradition, and he died the night before Thanksgiving.
Oh.
So by the time you hear this, it'll be months after Thanksgiving. But anyway, I think it just reaffirms how important it is to enjoy life. And
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I'm so sorry, though, because I know you were really close to him, and you spent a lot of time with him leading up to his death, which was really a gift, I think, probably for both of you and for his mom. So,
well,
I mean, it was great that you could be there for them, really.
Well, the honor was truly mine.
Yeah. That's just who April is. But we're moving along here, just chatting, getting caught up. I haven't seen April in a little bit, but...
hey, what's new with you? What's going on?
Well, my dog had kind of a poo-tacular the other night. And I like to say, like when my kids were babies, my husband used to call them poo-taculars. So my dog had a poo-tacular, and it was very, it was a little stressful, you know. There's a lot of situation going on. But the only reason I'm bringing it up is because my son, who, can be trying. He's 18 and he's fighting his way and not always the most helpful kid. And suddenly he appeared at like 8 in the morning and...
well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Nolan was up at 8 a.m.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, what the hell was that? Like, he was just... And he was wide awake, too. I mean, he probably streamed all night. But suddenly he was there and he was like, I'll take care of it. Give me Francis. Let me bathe this dog. We're like, what? We were just shocked. We were all just like, who is this person?
Did you videotape this?
No, we should have. But I'm never allowed to photograph him in any way, shape, or form.
Oh, okay.
And then my daughter kind of joined in, and the two of them kind of did it together, and it was very sweet, and it just warmed my heart, and it just made me feel like, wow, maybe things are turning a corner in our world. I don't know. You got to be grateful for those little things. So I was just very fresh in my mind, grateful for my son taking care of my dog's poo-tacular. Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I love it. I can't top that.
Thank God for small blessings, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
We take them where we get them.
Yeah, that's right. But with no further ado, tell me, who is your Sheela today?
Well, okay. It turns out that my Sheela, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Her name was Frances Glessner Lee.
Oh.
And she was considered the mother of forensic science.
Whoa, really?
She was one interesting lady, and you'll understand why I'm a little over the top about. She used to go by the name Fanny. And you will understand pretty soon why I am all in on Fanny.
Okay. Wow, all in on Fanny. I've never heard you say something like that before, April. I love the name Fanny. Yeah, Fanny. Anyway.
So anyway, Fanny, or Frances, as she was known by her parents, was born in 1878, and her parents were millionaires. Her father was a self-made millionaire. He created the family fortune by selling agricultural equipment through his company, International Harvester.
Okay.
And the family grew up. Fanny and her brother were raised in Chicago, and she was said to have suffered a very sheltered and lonely childhood. In fact, she and her older brother were homeschooled, and an architect described their fortress-like house as pathologically private.
Oh, that's so sad.
Isn't it? It's that she was very, very sheltered to the point of isolation.
Oh, that is so sad.
And Frances was taught, in addition to being homeschooled and studying all the main academic disciplines, she was also taught the feminine skills of sewing, embroidery, painting, and wait for it, the art of miniature making.
Oh, that's where this is going. And this April, by the way, loves miniatures. She loves miniatures. And tell them a little bit about your miniatures and your...
My miniature obsession.
Yeah.
So hidden away, because I usually am a little bit shy about this, but hidden away...
You can't be shy with me.
No, that's true.
I've kind of like at this point, because of our podcast, I've kind of outed you in every
Missy
possible way.
busts me in every way to Sunday.
So forget about being
Why
shy.
not bust me about my miniatures?
Yeah.
I have a little suburb in my bedroom. I have a few dollhouses, and they are the light of my life. I love dollhouse miniatures. I'm obsessed with them. On vacations, I look up where there are miniature museums or shops or stores or conferences. They have conventions, and I go to everything I can
Oh, I
possibly
want to
go.
go with you.
Oh, they are so fun.
I will go to a miniature.
Be careful what you ask for, because one's coming up in a few months.
Where?
In San Diego.
Oh, I'll go.
On February 1st and 2nd. Again, by the time this airs, it's probably well past there, and you could talk all about it.
Oh my gosh, I want to go. All right,
It's so fun.
we're gonna look at our date books.
Okay. But going back to Frances, or Fanny, she was taught how to make miniatures as part of the feminine arts of her day. And I just want you to, and don't you make any more jokes about sticking a pin in Fanny. But we're going to stick a pin in the whole miniature thing.
Okay. But let me just say, so making miniatures was part of learning the womanly ways back then?
Well, she was in a very upscale, wealthy family, and I guess that was part of what women did to keep busy and develop artistic skills.
It's just interesting. Like, I wonder how that came about. Like, making miniatures. That's a whole other tributary that,
Right.
that I probably would have traveled down.
But apparently it was described as just one of the feminine skill sets, along with embroidery and painting and sewing.
That's so interesting. Making miniatures.
Yeah,
Okay.
you wouldn't have thought about that.
No, I wouldn't.
But Frances was also fond, and you might want to stick a pin in these little hints too. She was fond of Sherlock Holmes stories. And when she was young, she developed tonsillitis, and it was very dangerous back in that day to have surgeries. And so her parents could afford her mother to take her from specialist to specialist until they found a doctor that they felt would be able to perform that surgery safely on Frances, and they did. And that opened up her interest in medicine. And she had some aspirations of being a doctor or nurse. She was really interested in medicine.
Yeah.
And
I have a little side note about that.
Yeah.
Just about tonsillitis. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to get I get distracted sometimes. I had this ex-boyfriend and his mom, who was probably born, I would imagine she was probably born in the late 20s, early 1930s, I'm going to say. Lovely woman. She told us this story one time when she was a child. She grew up in the Detroit area. The family doctor came over, and she and her two brothers all had their tonsils removed at the same time. In their house, they laid on the kitchen table, and the doctor went in there and removed a set of tonsils from each of them. And just right there, like no anesthetic. Like, that's insane.
Well, you're a little bit younger than I am, but back in the day when I was a kid, everybody got a tonsillectomy. It was really common. I don't know about without anesthetic.
I was going to say, did they give you anesthetic on the kitchen table? Like,
I thought they did, and the big thing was you
God.
got ice cream, but
Yeah.
back when Frances had this, or Fanny, it was a big damn deal, and people would die.
Right,
And,
of course, of course.
So she was so fascinated by medicine. She used to, when she was younger, ask the doctors in her vacation area in this smaller town to go with them and shadow them when they went to see other patients in the neighborhood.
Oh, wow.
But very sadly, I mentioned she was very isolated and sheltered, and her father and mother both believed that women, it was fine to educate women in the home, but that they didn't work outside of the home, they didn't have careers, they didn't go to college. And Frances desperately wanted to go to college and make something meaningful of her life, and her parents really isolated and did not allow her to do that.
Again, so sad, so fucked up.
Yeah,
Wow.
yep. So shortly before her 21st birthday, instead of going to school or launching career, she did what most women of that day did, and she married Glessner Lee. And he was a lawyer and professor at Northwest University.
What a name. Now, how did she meet him if she was so isolated?
I guess, well, her brother went to Harvard. And she actually befriended several of her brother's friends. I'm not sure if she met Blewitt through her brother, but I suspect so because he was an attorney. And the couple had 3 children, but the marriage fell apart pretty soon after. And in 1914, very scandalously for the day, they divorced.
Ooh.
And although Frances took back her independence to some extent by divorcing her husband and not living in an unhappy marriage, she found herself financially dependent on her family, her father and mother, for quite a number of years. And when they controlled the purse strings, they controlled her and what she got to do or not do.
Ugh, that's terrible.
But things began to change for her around the time of 1929. First, her brother very sadly passed away. I'm not sure from what.
Oh, that's so sad.
But again, back then, medicine wasn't as advanced, and
Right.
people would contract illnesses and not recover.
Yes, yes.
And a few years later, her mother also followed suit and passed away. And in 1936, her father died, and guess what?
She was able to do what she wanted to do finally.
The whole fortune came to Fanny.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So one
Silver lining, I suppose.
suppose.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this was when Fanny stopped perceiving her life to be so tragic. She had befriended one of her brother's friends, George Burgess McGrath. McGrath was a Boston medical examiner, and he was skilled at solving difficult murder cases. He was really interested in the science of forensics, and forensics at the time was not really very advanced. And Frances was interested in McGrath's interest in looking for ways for detectives to explore and interpret crime scenes. And at the time, a lot of cases were left unsolved because detectives were not trained in any form of medical examination or protocol, and they misinterpreted results, they tampered with evidence, and they just basically had no medical training. They botched autopsies.
Wow.
And it was just the Wild West. And investigators did all kinds of things. They'd walk through blood, crime scenes or scenes where there were death scenes where there were a lot of blood. And they'd move body and they'd stick their fingers through bullet holes and taint a lot of evidence.
Oh my God.
So Frances decided that she was going to reform the county's legal medical system with the fortune of money that she had inherited. And so she created the George Burgess McGrath Library of Legal Medicine, which was soon followed by the country's
Fascinating.
first forensic pathology program.
That's fascinating. I mean, it's amazing that she had that vision and she took that money and she did this. I mean, it's amazing.
And remember, she had an interest in medicine from way back in her own childhood with tonsillitis. And she had an interest in Sherlock Holmes stories. So
Yeah.
these two things kind of went together. And then her friend George Burgess McGrath just sort of really made those interests converge. But very sadly, as she was getting going with George McGrath, he passed away.
Oh no, another one. It's so
I
sad
know,
again.
yeah. But through her own research and effort, Frances kept up his cause, and she became regarded as the mother and expert in forensic field.
Wow. Now I'm starting to wonder if those miniatures that we put a pin in are coming back at this point. And I can't even possibly imagine how they would come back, but I'm really interested.
Well, good you asked. So, first of all, Frances was looking at the fact that no one exactly knew what legal medicine was supposed to mean. So she was really interested in creating foundations of evidence gathering and protocols. She was looking at a systematic approach to forensics. And she said, fortunately, the skill, knowledge, and training that her friend Dr. McGrath had guided her with enabled her to accomplish a good deal. What she found as she herself was studying forensic sciences and starting to teach in the art of evidence gathering was that she couldn't take a team of, in those days it was all men, 14 to 20 men to observe a crime scene. So she herself would observe crime scenes, and she observed autopsies, and she was a perfectionist about detail. She noticed everything down to the finest detail. And so she harkened back to her mother and aunt's training in miniature making, and she created something called Nutshell Studies of Unexplained Death.
Wow. Oh my God. Nutshell studies of unexplained death. I love that.
Yes, she began creating these dioramas,
Could that be our new band name?
Nutshell Studies of Unexplained Death.
I really like it. We're an art band. I love it. I love it. I'm sorry. I didn't interrupt you. My brain.
Well, the name has already been taken by her, or that was what her dioramas came to be called. But she made them as an opportunity or a way to teach forensic science and evidence gathering in a very systematic way by creating the most hardest to solve dioramas or miniature scenes of death. And I hate to bring back something, speaking of loss, that's painful for you, Missy, but you know that not too long ago your aunt passed away.
Yes.
And when she died, she did die of natural causes. However, when her body was first found, can you say a little bit about that?
Yeah. She basically, we hadn't heard from her a few days. I had a friend go check on her. He couldn't get in. He called the police. The police called me, and they told me that my aunt was deceased. And right away, I was just shocked, and I said, "Oh my God, what happened? What happened?" They said, "We don't even know. We have no." They actually, no, you know what they actually said? They actually said, "You don't even want to know." And I said, "Yes, I do." And they said, "Well, actually, this is a crime scene. We need to investigate. There's so much blood and trauma here. We can't say for sure what happened, and we are going to need at least 24 hours to investigate the scene." So, of course, my siblings and I all thought she had been murdered. The good news is that, it's terrible news, but she wasn't murdered. I guess it's better to have a fall, and as she did, than to be murdered. But it was just really shocking. But I see what you're getting at here, though. Go on.
Yeah, so Frances and her whole push towards forensic science and evidence gathering is that when you find a body, you can't always determine whether that person died of natural causes, and like your aunt hit her head and had substantial bleeding, or if it was a crime scene and she's bleeding because she was stabbed or shot or some other wound that would produce a lot of blood. And so the way to accurately determine someone's death required a deep and sophisticated level of science. And this is where Frances was going. And when she created these nutshell studies of unexplained death, it wasn't always about murder, but it was about training detectives and teaching them in the art of determining evidence and interpreting what was happened.
Right.
Because obviously a dead body can't talk and explain anything. And so the evidence gathering was really important.
Yes.
So over, I believe it was a 10-year period, Frances created 20 models of actual crime scenes, or that were based on actual crime scenes, and she chose the most puzzling cases to test student detectives' power of both observation and use of logic. Many of those cases couldn't be solved just by observing the crime. Frances really advocated strongly for the involvement of medical examiners and other scientific experts to work with detectives and have more medical examinations involved in determining what happened. And some of these cases definitely involve foul play, but other victims died from either natural causes or suicides. And so these nutshells depicted all kinds of different types of death.
Wow, I can't wait to go look up pictures of these little nutshells, dioramas. I can't wait. Oh my God, fascinating.
Well, she really was dedicated to this, and she spent back in this period of time, the 1940s through the 1950s, she spent between $3,000 and $4,500 on each nutshell diorama.
Wow, I wonder how much that is today.
Oh, I can't even imagine, but she went all in for authenticity and detail.
Yes, oh my God.
So, example, one of her nutshells took place in a cheap motel room, and the light switch had grime on the light switch to depict the number of
Oh my
hands
gosh, that's
that would have done
amazing.
that. She had door handles that worked, keys that went into locks,
Wow.
and others in that era, if they happened, for example, in a kitchen, had the food products lining the kitchen shelves from that era.
Wow.
If there were calendars, they were turned to the correct month and year the victim died. She even had like mouse traps that worked if they were found in the room. And she had a miniature rocking chair that rocked exactly 3 times when you pulled it back on a 45-degree angle to meet the specifications of a specific real-life crime scene.
Whoa. Attention to detail. You did say she was the master of detail, so
Yeah.
there it goes. Yep.
And as for the homicides themselves, like I said, she would attend autopsies and visit crime scenes. And one of the things that she specialized in was the study of blood splatter patterns. So she made sure that all of her corpses possessed the correct degree of bloat and discoloration
Oh my God.
when they were found. She studied and observed and carefully placed the correct angle of a knife or the pooling blood of that stream on a matched crime scene. Her models showed a wide range of death, from hangings to falls to fire to gas oven suicides.
Oh my God.
And she created victims who were so unlike her own experience growing up, because she grew up in a very sheltered, affluent experience, but many of her crime scenes included drunks and prostitutes and just poverty, people who were very poor. Well, she had a biographer who points out that most of Franny's victims were female, and noticed that many of those females died in the home. And she speculated that because Franny herself, or excuse me, Fanny, I want to call her Franny, Frances and Fanny.
You're allowed.
But thank you. But she went by Fanny. She really felt like home was a death of a woman. That Boats, her biographer, felt that maybe she was expressing some of her views of women being subjugated to the household as part of a statement in her dioramas.
Yeah.
Now, she also interjected into her dioramas a little bit of personal interest. For example, she really loved fish and fishing. And the wallpaper motif on one of her nutshells actually displayed that particular interest.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
So while she didn't ever interfere with the precision of the crime scene and the evidence, she took liberties with other things to put her own personality
She had to
in.
make it a little interesting for herself. Why not throw in a little flair? It is a form of art.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. There is that whole art thing.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, one of her nutshells included a barn, and it was really important that these things were authentic. So she took a piece of roofing off of her own barn on a property that she had. It was a 200-year-old barn on her property, and she used it to make sure that the roof was appropriately weathered, like,
Wow.
because she wanted everything to really reflect what went on. So she did all of these 20 dioramas or nutshells between the 40s and the 50s. And as I mentioned, they became known as the Nutshell Studies of Unexplained Death. One in particular was called the Three-Room Dwelling. It was built around 1944, and it featured a husband and a wife lying in their bedroom with their baby crib nearby, adjacent to the nursery. And everything about it was a typical morning, except there were red blood stains on the beige bedroom carpet and the pink and white striped wallpaper behind the crib. All three family members, mother, father, and baby, had been shot to death.
Oh, God.
And the blood splattering on that particular diorama was training for, I can't tell you, countless detectives.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Who does something like that? Oh, God.
I know. Pretty gruesome.
I mean, even the baby. Like, that is just, ugh.
Gruesome.
Heartbreaking.
But in 1945, Harvard installed the first of her models, and she began delivering biannual week-long seminars to train student detectives on the art of forensic observation. And she was almost always the only woman in the room, and initially, the men were very reluctant to accept her. But remember, Frances had a lot of means. She had a lot of money. So she wined and dined her new colleagues, and many of them just came to really know her and befriend her, and they started calling her mothers, and some of them sent her Mother's Day cards.
Aww.
And over time, she became endeared to the whole detective team that she worked with and trained.
That's great. And they respected her,
They
obviously.
totally respected her. And remember, she never really had that college education she wanted.
And she was a woman.
So everything was
mean,
self-taught.
yeah.
And she used, her biographer pointed this out, that she used a traditional female art form as her training methodology, the miniatures, which was sort of an ironic twist. She became the honorary captain of the New Hampshire State Police, making her the very first woman to join the International Association of Chiefs of Police.
Wow.
But most importantly for her work mattered. Because back when she was living under her father's thumb,
Yeah.
and he controlled the purse string, she wanted desperately to make her life purposeful and meaningful.
Right.
And being forced to stay in the home and just be a wife and mother was really demoralizing for her. And so the fact that she became so involved and influential in evidence gathering, and her work became instrumental to crime scene investigations or unexplained death investigations, made her feel like her life had deep and profound meaning.
It did. It absolutely did. My God.
She was credited with making forensic investigation into a scientific process.
Wow. Wow. Did she ever marry again?
Nope. She
Okay.
didn't marry.
And what about her 3 kids? What happened with them?
It's so funny. I don't know if it was the wormhole that I climbed into with the miniature crime nutshell.
Yeah.
But I just saw that she had 3 children, and my bad on my own research. I didn't really research that or
No,
look at that.
that's okay. I'm just curious if they continued on in the same, the same field, how they were inspired by her. Was she a good mom?
Yeah.
Was she,
questions.
Sometimes with some of our Sheilas, we've seen that some of them have children, and although they do the best they can to be a good mother, that their interests are so strong, or their desire to change things is so strong that sometimes the kids don't get as much attention as they would have liked, or you know what I mean? I wonder about that. Yeah.
That is true. The only thing I could say is that it was at least a decade or more before she inherited the money. So her children were probably in their 10s to 20s around the time that she had inherited the money. And so they might have been older, but I need to do a little bit more research. I'm going to come back to you on that, because
that's fine.
That's a good question. I was so all involved in the dioramas.
I gotcha.
I lost my brain.
I gotcha.
So Lee died in 1962 at the age of 83, and that ended the endowment for the Harvard program, where she displayed her nutshells and trained incoming student detectives. The university closed its whole forensics program at that time, and they put the nutshells into storage. And apparently they were all headed for the dumpster, all 20 of
Oh
them.
my God, no. No, I want one.
But Harvard professor Russell Fisher accepted a job in Baltimore as Maryland's chief medical examiner, and he brought the nutshells with him and in 1968 began using them in teaching seminars.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Good.
They
I'm
were
so glad.
saved. In fact, today they're permanently installed on the fourth floor of the office of the chief medical examiner behind a door marked pathology exhibit.
Oh my God, road trip. Road trip for sure. We're adding that to the list.
Believe it or not, the nutshells are still used as training tools in homicide seminars. This is not a museum or a gallery. It's still a functional tool because, as Goldfarb said in the exhibit, death does not change.
Whoa.
So Fanny, in addition to all of her accomplishments, was actually the inspiration for the character behind Jessica Fletcher in Murder, She Wrote.
Oh, wow.
A CSI episode was inspired by her work. Recently, Guillermo del Toro contracted Boats, her biographer, about optioning the rights to create an HBO show about Lee.
I love him.
Yeah,
and,
I do
and you know
too.
it would be so good if he was, oh my God, please let that happen. I love that.
Right?
Oh my God, yes.
And although the nutshells are not available for public observations, visitors range from detectives to artists to miniature aficionados like me. So I'm not exactly sure how you get to see them, but we should definitely find out.
Oh my gosh, yes, we do. Road trip for sure. Yes.
So I just wanted to end this segment by talking about some other miniatures that maybe didn't have the same impact that Francis's had in terms of being such an important training tool. But Japanese art director and photographer Tatsuya Takanaka began creating miniature art, adding to his diorama collection daily. And his collections are getting stranger, as they say, and much more creative with time.
Wow.
He made a mango slice into a small island with a palm tree. He converted a circuit board into a golf field with actual golf players. And a rolled-up magazine was transformed into a wave for a surfer.
Wow.
Yeah. American sculptor Thomas Doyle created microscopic idyllic scenes that were devastated by calamities and catastrophes. His work features tiny humans and immaculate green landscapes with over-the-edge buried houses and demolished estates due to natural disasters and other kinds of ill-befallen incidents.
So interesting.
I know. Some of these people have such amazing creativity and vision. Pika Worm, as she goes by, is a Malaysian clay art hobbyist who regularly posts her work on social media platforms. And her name Pico is inspired from the very small unit in a metro system, tiny, and worm is taken for a bookworm. Pico Worm creates lifelike foods out of air, dry clay, and paints over them with acrylics. And the pictures, if check it out on social media, are really mouth-watering.
That sounds so cool.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh my God, yes.
Daniel Agdag created a series of beautifully designed detailed sculptures using just PVA glue and sliced cardboard. He named his collection Sets for a Film I'll Never Make. Believe it or not, he's a Melbourne-based award-winning filmmaker and artist, and he flaunts his talent and eye for detail with accurate collection of miniature models of not actual film sets, but potential film sets.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
He features building and industrial machinery, and pieces of his miniature models are created in the Art Deco style that when photographed make the models look like they just stepped out of a vintage noir film.
Oh my God, I want to see those.
Isn't that amazing?
Oh my God, it's so amazing.
Daniel Agdag. You got to look these people up.
Oh, for sure.
And then artist Joshua Smith creates painstaking work that embodies authentic urban cities like in Los Angeles or Sydney and Hong Kong. And he depicts litter and graffiti and road signs and takeout food sitting on the roofs of buildings, just sort of urban life throughout the country or the world.
Yeah.
And I'm going to finish with St. Paul, Minnesota-based dog lover Lucy Frances Maloney. And she found a way to help pet owners with grief of losing a pet by creating incredible lifelike miniature replicas of their deceased dogs.
Oh.
She's a 61-year-old artist, and she's created more than 150,000 handmade models of doggies that they say would even trick owners into believing that their beloved pooches have risen from their graves, except that they're in miniature form.
Oh my God, I gotta look her up. I mean, I'm sure it's very expensive, but think of what a beautiful gift that would be for somebody who lost their pet.
I know.
Oh my gosh, I wanted to add to that actually.
Yes.
Lyndon Barrios.
Yes.
He lives in New Orleans, and he is the gum wrapper miniature artist.
Oh my gosh.
And he's getting kind of famous now, but as a little boy, his mom always chewed Wrigley's spearmint gum. And so he started building these little like sculptures out of the gum wrappers. And now here he is, and he's made it's his legacy. He's made, you can look him up online. He's amazing. You got to check him out.
Well, I just loved going on this miniature excursion with you today.
Me too. Me too. Oh my gosh. And we have to go on more. There's so many places we have to add to the list. We were going to go on the Sheela podcast road trip.
Right.
And we're very excited about that. We're starting to plan. There's so many places we want to see, and so many museums and people we want to meet. I mean, we can't wait. It's going to be awesome.
It is going to be awesome, but I do want to end with Frances Glessner Lee. Fulfilled her life wish. She really left a legacy.
She really did. Thank you for sharing her.
Oh, thank you. This was so much fun.
Fanny, we love you, Fanny.
We do love Fanny.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing that, April. I love Fanny. After we stop, I have a lot more questions, things I need to write down, because I have a lot of research I need to do now. My brain is like all the wheels are turning, and I'm very excited.
And next time we record, or in a few episodes, I will tell you about Fanny's children.
All right. I look forward to it. All right. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.